the Ursuline Sisters of Youngstown founded an HIV/AIDS ministry in 1993.
We felt that the Ursuline Sisters, following the invitation of Angela Merici when she founded the company in 1535, she asked us to meet the needs of the times.
Well, how we started was we put one foot in front of the other and said, what's going on in this city? And it took us several months, and finally we found there was a support group at a local church once a month. It was run by a man who was retired from GM, and he called the support group Living in the Light. There was a little book called Living in the Light that had a thought for the day for people with HIV and AIDS. So we called him and said, can we attend? We went to the meeting, we kept going, and after the people who were all HIV positive got to know us and we got to know them, we kept saying to them, what can we do for you? What can we do for you? But it became very apparent that they were lonely, they were isolated, they knew they were all going to die. And they had all the questions you ask yourself right before you die. And one of the sisters said to them, why don't you come to our house on another night during the month, and we'll do a different kind of support group. We'll pray with you. And so they said yes, and so they came.
Over time, the ministry, which began as a prayer support group, grew to include pantries of food and personal hygiene products, a monthly social support group and congregate meal, a children's program, an adult and pediatric HIV clinic, and a housing program.
Today, HIV/AIDS is very manageable. It's a chronic condition that can be managed as long as you go to the doctor and take care of yourself.
I think that part of it we've come a long way, and people can live really productive, meaningful lives, and most days feel very well, feel as well as anyone with maybe like a chronic illness.
But for a lot of people that come in here and someone who is diagnosed, it is still the scariest words that they can possibly hear. And because with it goes all of the stigma, all of the fear of dying, all of the bad news of the 80s just comes rushing back.
I think that our ministry and its programs really mirror the changes that we see in HIV and AIDS over time. Early on, we began as a prayer support group because in large part, that's what was needed in this community, but also that's really the reality of where HIV was in the 1980s and early 1990s. As we've had medical advancements, as we've seen people living longer, now we're talking about housing, and we're talking about that because people are living long lives, and there are opportunities for that.
HIV/AIDS today depends on who you are, unfortunately. I think if you have the means to have good insurance and the best physicians and the best medications, you can lead a very long, productive life with HIV. Unfortunately, what we find is that people who don't have those means, don't have maybe access immediately to medications, to physicians, to people who can guide them in the right place, those people we see unfortunately have much higher mortality than those with means. Our job really is to try to bridge that gap and make sure that everybody who needs the care that we can provide can get it.
I've probably done, rough guess, a couple thousand HIV tests, and more often than not I hear you get it from toilet seats, you can get it from kissing, you can get it from using somebody's fork that they ate off of or something, it's unfortunate because it's just uneducated people.
My thing, I believe, is all about educating your loved ones and your friends. And I believe that the ones who are living with it, if they teach one, they reach one, allowing them to know that it's not a gay disease. It's everybody's disease today. You cannot heal what you don't confront. And if you don't confront it, you won't heal.
As a teacher, I always think education is the key. I think that ignorance breeds fear, And then when people are in fear, they don't think straight, they don't think rationally. So the more people know, I think would help with erasing stigma. And it also helps to see these role models. You know, for me to see role models when I started in this ministry, for our volunteers to see, I hope, myself as a role model, and they can see she's there every day with children. She's not worried, she's not fearful, she's fine. So I hope that setting an example and educating people hopefully are two ways that we can help erase stigma.
The Ursuline Sisters HIV/AIDS ministry has responded to the needs of the time and have worked to ensure positive health outcomes for those living with HIV in our community.
From the very basic, like making sure kids get fed, now we have transportation for patients to get here, you know, the new housing, because, you know, being homeless, that's a huge challenge. Just a lot of different things.
My vision of the ministry was that we needed to do something for these people who were God's children, and nobody was doing anything for them.
And it's a mutual journey. You know, the folks that come here, they feed into the sister spirituality, and we feed into what their spirituality is. And so hand in hand, we work together, and I see us doing that as we continue this Easter journey for the rest of our life. You know, what I've learned is to live in the present moment, and I've learned this from all those that we have served over these many years in HIV ministry. Just live every moment of every day with dignity and respect, and that's what I've always received from those we work with, and that's what I'd like to give, bring a little joy into people's lives.
I've learned, strangely, that there is something bigger than all of us. And I'm not sure I would have said that 7, 8 years ago.
Sister Kathleen was a lifeline for me. She gave me the hope and to where I could actually believe that everything was going to be, you know, okay. So
what really inspired me was I could really sense that I was with a group of very committed people, that everything they did, and I know that we say this a lot in this ministry, but what they do as if they were doing it for their own family. If you don't have this, we will provide it for you. It's not just good enough, it's provided for our clients the way we would do it for our families.
I think what inspires me today about the ministry is that it's not stagnant. It's always moving forward. There's always a basic underground goodness that is the whole foundation of the ministry, is to be kind to people, is to do your best for them. You go back to that basic goodness, and that you have to love people, and things will eventually work out.
I'm inspired by our volunteers, by people that come, and even if they've never met someone who is HIV positive, but come because they want to make a difference, that's inspiring to see that and to feel that presence. And I'm inspired by the Ursuline Sisters still, to have the vision and to have the tenacity to begin a ministry like this, and to still be involved and still support it. You know, really shows their devotion and their dedication to the community. It shows their dedication and devotion to those that are HIV positive and to those that are typically marginalized in our community too.
I never imagined in my wildest moment, I knew it was going to grow, but I never imagined that we would come to where we're at today, where we have the classiest HIV program in the whole world, I think.
We are incredibly grateful to all the volunteers over the years. We've always had a relatively small staff compared to the number of people we're able to serve, and that's due in great part to the number of volunteers we have had over the years, and of course to our donors and supporters who allow us to do what we do. And we really hope that one day we don't need to be in this business, that somehow we get to the point where there's no need for services for people living with HIV. But until then, we'll keep doing it.
Let your light shine to fill your nights and days. All will see the deeds you do and give your Father praise. Let your light shine for all the world to see. The brightness of your life within, the peace that sets you free. Let your